All right, Brian, in part two of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by FanDuel, we're talking Notre Dame rooting guide. We came up with this idea. We talked about, hey, look, with the position that Notre Dame is in this season, we get a lot of questions on the message boards, in live shows, across mailbag questions, super chats around, hey, should we root for this team or this team this weekend? What does Notre Dame need to happen on a week-to-week basis? Because right now they are on the outside looking in of the playoffs. So I think that is going to start to change here over the next couple of weeks. But in order for some of those things to happen, there are some specific games where we kind of have to root for some outcomes, scoreboard watching, if you will. So what we've done the last couple of weeks, we started last week, right?
Yeah, we wanted to wait till after the BC game. We wanted to let's let them get out of the BC game or USC game. Let's see them win that game, earn that first really, really good win. Then we'll start looking at the playoffs. And so that's why we waited till last week to do that. Trev and I have been wanting to do that since like week 4. But we're like, let's wait till they win a few games and it'll be worth it.
Yeah. Oh, that's for sure. That is definitely for sure. But look, this is a huge weekend and there are tons of games. Like we talked about earlier, there's 8 on our outline in just this section, but there's a lot more games that are going to impact Notre Dame's playoff outcome. So we're going to look at this from a Notre Dame's opponent's perspective. And all 8 games that we're going to be talking about are teams that Notre Dame has played or gearing up to play this weekend, Brian. And there's a lot of things that are going to be going on this weekend in college football. Some chaos, some teams need to handle business. It's definitely going to be fun to watch, man.
It is, and it's there's a lot of different aspects to the game watch this week. Some of it is related to improving Notre Dame's resume with a win that they already have looks better now. Others are, you're trying to hope that people improve the resumes of teams that Notre Dame's going to play. And then there's a couple games this week where a Notre Dame opponent has a chance to knock off a team ranked ahead of Notre Dame, or at least, a team that might be in contention with Notre Dame. And then there's also some games, Trev, that are, national games. I have one of them listed in the Notre Dame opponent section. I keep forgetting that Notre Dame didn't play Louisville this year, so I'm moving that down on the list. Make that note, Trev, the Louisville-Virginia Tech game. I'm not sure why I have that one under Notre Dame opponents. But it's a very interesting game. It's a very interesting game, Trev, to look at this, and same thing with the Virginia Cal game, and say, there's just so many games that impact what Notre Dame is going to be ranked on Tuesday. Surprising number of games that are going to be there. And so we're going to do that. There will be some games that we're going to kind of double up on. We're going to talk about them here, but then also preview them in the next game or in the next segment when we do the national games, but it's going to be more focused on it from a Notre Dame standpoint. So point being is when you're watching games this weekend, here's who you should be rooting for to win and why. I would encourage people not to lose their minds if all of them don't go how you want. I saw that a little bit last week. You don't need all of them to go your way, or even most of them. You just need a couple of them to kind of go your way, especially the national thing. So, people kind of freaking out when not every game went their way last week. And I'm like, guys, relax. We're going to do this every week. It's not this week. Everything has to happen perfectly or Notre Dame is out. It's not how it is, but I'm ready to jump in, Trev. And some of this stuff, I'm curious to hear you guys in the chat, what you think about some of these games, because I think some of my takes, there's going to be a lot of people that don't agree with me, and I'm looking forward to having that conversation. So let's get to it, Trev.
Well, let's do it. I'm interested to hear some of these takes now too. I'm ready, baby. So let's talk about this first game, 12 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. Number 10, Miami Hurricanes on the road for the first time this season, leaving the state of Florida, playing the SMU Mustangs in Texas. Now, Brian, outlook on this game. How are we feeling about this? Miami is the number 10 team in the country, only 2 spots above Notre Dame right now.
Yeah, so this is one right off the bat that I think people are going to disagree with me on. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, look, you need Miami to win. You need Miami to, to go out there and be better than Notre Dame for 2 reasons. One is, you don't want the final at-large to come down to Notre Dame and Miami, because Miami has they have the head-to-head, and that's going to get them in. And I'm not someone who necessarily agrees with that, and I'll explain that. So this is a game that's going to help Notre Dame no matter what. because either A, Miami does win and they keep staying high in the rankings and it gives Notre Dame a better loss. But I also think it actually helps Notre Dame if also in a different way, if Miami loses to SMU. And I know that the immediate reaction, yeah, but they won the head-to-head. And look, head-to-head does matter. Head-to-head should matter. The committee has always said, but head-to-head is not the ultimate trump card where it's above everything else. And when I look at Miami and kind of what they have left on the schedule, it's not a given that they're going to win out. And do you want them to be 10-2 with a last game loss to Pitt? Or do you want maybe a last game loss to Pitt to make them 9-3 and now they're behind Notre Dame for sure? But when I look at Miami's overall resume, Trev, if they have 2 losses, the Notre Dame game is obviously a big one, but that was a long time ago. The South Florida loss was a good one. How does that look? How does the Florida loss look right now? The Florida State win doesn't look great right now. The Stanford loss doesn't, Stanford win is whatever. What does a Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech, and Pitt win do for them? Kind of what it'll do for Notre Dame. It's kind of a wash. But then they're going to have 2 losses that are just bad losses. And that's the thing that's going to me, I could see a world in which Notre Dame is ranked ahead of Miami if they have the same record. My concern, however, is I don't know that Miami's capable of running the table. And I don't know that I necessarily want Miami to keep winning, get all the way up to like 4, and then lose to Pitt in the final week of the regular season, and then fall, but still be right ahead of Notre Dame. And then, or they win out, and then they're 11-1, and then they lose the ACC title game, and now a second, or third ACC team gets in, something like that. So either, like somebody just said, win out or lose out for Miami, and that's kind of where I'm at. But I just don't have a ton of faith that Miami can win out. The sooner they lose that second game, the more likely it is that they're going to lose a third game. But at the end of the day, don't see that happening. I think I'm not impressed with SMU this year. They struggled to move the ball on Wake last week. What are they going to do to Miami? But so this one to me is a win-win either way. What do I think you want to root for? I don't know. It depends on which thing you think is more likely. If you think Miami is capable of winning out the rest of the way, then root for Miami. I think that helps Notre Dame. If you think Miami's a flawed team that might lose another game, then you should want them to lose this game to make sure that it helps. It helps sort of solidify the fact that they're going to fall below Notre Dame with another loss.
This game I'm relatively neutral in. This game that Miami plays against SMU is going to tell me what I need to root for the rest of the season for a lot of the reasons that you just explained. If Miami wins, I don't know if there's another team on their schedule that can. There are teams that can beat anybody if there's anything that we've seen this season in college football. I think if they lose this game, that puts Miami in a spot where they have now lost, 2 of their last 3 games. They lost to Louisville at home. They lose their first game out of state, and then they still have Virginia Tech on the road and then Pitt on the road. But if they lose this one, I think that they could pick up another loss, but I'm not banking on it. I don't see them losing to Syracuse. I think NC State, it's a little smoke and mirrors. They have talent, but their best win of the season came in week 2, and since then it's been you beat Wake Forest on the road, and then outside of that, their only other win has been against Campbell. Outside of their first 2 weeks of the season. So it's like, it's not bad, I guess. Pitt would have to be the last one. So this game for me is like, if Miami wins, I'm going to want them to continue to win out. If they lose, then it's like what you guys said is, pick a direction and hope that they lose at least one more to drop behind Notre Dame. I agree with that completely. But like you said, it's a win-win. I'm relative.
Between NC State, Virginia Tech, and Pitt, I can see them losing one. Especially those 2 road games against Tech and Pitt, because they're going to be cold, very cold. And Miami hasn't typically done well in those situations.
Second game that we're talking about here, Brian, the Navy midshipmen, who are still unranked, unfortunately, which I could see changing depending on the outcome of this game. 12 p.m. kickoff on ESPN2. Navy travels to play North Texas in a G5 battle. This should be another fun one.
This is a simple one. You want Navy to win this game. This Navy last week in the AP poll was the first team right outside the top 25. And I don't know where the committee's going to view them, but the committee gave love to Navy last year. The difference is this Navy team hasn't been as impressive as last year's Navy team and like blowing teams out, but this is their chance to kind of prove themselves. Navy is not getting talked a lot about as being the potential G5 representative. But if you look at it with Memphis beating South Florida last week, Navy has North Texas, South Florida, and Memphis all left on their schedule. And so the odds of them kind of getting that G5 bid are not great because I have a hard time seeing them win all 3 of those games. But I think it gives them at least a puncher's chance. But you want this matchup next weekend when Navy comes to Notre Dame to matter more. And if Navy can beat North Texas, who is a 7-1 team and has looked good this season, then that just gives them it's really their first high-profile win of the season from a G5 standpoint. It's their first, in my opinion, really good win this season. Unfortunately for Navy, some of the teams they've played so far haven't been as good as maybe we had hoped that they would be. This season, Air Force hasn't been that good, and a lot of the other teams weren't expected to be good this season. Temple's been one of their better wins so far, and Temple's 5-3. So they need this kind of win over on the road against a really good North Texas team who blew out Washington State, blew out UTSA, blew out Charlotte last week. Their only loss so far this season was to USF, who's a real good football team. So we're going to see if Navy can get it done, but if they do, it sets up a potential top 25 matchup. Because I can see the committee putting, I believe I think Navy, I could be wrong on this, but isn't Navy the last undefeated G5 team left? So Navy 7-0, and there's no undefeated teams at Conference USA, none in the MAC, none in the Mountain West, none in the Pac-2, and none in the Sun Belt. So yeah, Navy's the last undefeated G5. If they beat a 7-1 North Texas team on the road, I could see Navy being ranked in the first playoff committee rankings because they're going to have to position Navy in a spot to be ranked higher when that first ranking comes out. Navy hasn't done anything yet to warrant a top 25 ranking. This could be their first shot to do that. Or this
Agreed.
is their first shot to do that. So you need Navy to win.
That was what I was going to ask. So need Navy to win and handle business against North Texas this weekend. We are on the same page. Next game that we're talking about, we're taking a trip over to the ACC. Kickoff is at 3:30 p.m. Talking about the Pittsburgh Panthers on the road against the Stanford Cardinal. Right now, FanDuel has them favored, the Pittsburgh Panthers favored by 14.5 points. And this is actually more of an interesting game than what some people might think that it is, Brian. I mean, for as much of a running joke as what Stanford is, they've yet to lose at home yet this year. Yet to lose at home. And that makes this matchup a little bit more interesting outside of just looking at the talent on Pitt versus the talent on Stanford, the X's and O's, and the overall record. How do you see this one playing out, Brian, and what should Notre Dame fans be rooting for here?
You want a Pitt win. I mean, look, there's no win that's going to make the Stanford win at the end of the year look good. Yeah. They're just not a good team. And so, Pitt's rolling right now. And, this game would improve Pitt to 7-2, I believe, right? Isn't Pitt 6-2 right now?
Yes.
It would improve them to 7-2. Then they have a bye next weekend before they play Notre Dame. So again, you want to be able to have for Notre Dame to have some wins against ranked opponents. And here's how the committee is going to look at Pitt. They're going to see a team that's 7-2. And they're going to look at their resume and say, they don't have like a lot of great wins on their resume. Like there's no like big top 25 wins on their resume. But here's what they're going to do. They're going to say, okay, Pitt started 2-2. They have a home loss to a ranked Louisville team, at least ranked as of now. They have a really bad road loss at West Virginia. So why did they deserve to be in the top 25? Well, after losing to Louisville, they made a quarterback change. And they put Mason Houchel in at quarterback. And since that game, Pitt has been outstanding. They're 4-0. They went on the road and beat Florida State. They went on the road and beat Syracuse convincingly. They beat Boston College 48-7. And in their most recent game, they beat NC State 53-34. Then they go out and give Stanford their first home loss of the season. Now, all of a sudden, there's at least a chance between this game and then the bye week next week when more teams lose that Pitt has a shot to be ranked in the top 25 when Notre Dame plays them. You beat a top 25 team in the middle of November. Even if that team falls out, that's going to be viewed as a good win. And so I think Pitt beating Stanford and beating Stanford convincingly is important for Notre Dame in that it'll position Pitt potentially as a top 25 team, because if they win this game, then there's no shot they lose between the now and when they play Notre Dame, because they have a bye week next week.
I'm looking up some numbers right now and just how Pitt has done on the road so far this season, and they are 2-1. This is their fourth road game of the year. They lost in their first road game of the year on the road against West Virginia in that overtime lot. That was just such a weird game, Brian. We talked about that earlier this week. Real weird game. One that Pitt, I'm sure, wants back. And then they beat Florida State on the road 34-31, and then they beat Syracuse 30-13 in back-to-back road games in the middle of October. So this will be an interesting challenge, but I'm with you.
No, they're 2-0 on the road since Mason Houchel was put in at quarterback.
Yep, they are. And like you said, offense looks completely different. I'm with you there. Next game, Brian, another 3:30 p.m. kickoff on FS1. Fresno State is going and playing Boise State on the road on the blue field. This one should be interesting. Yep. I'm fair to assume we're rooting for a Boise State win here.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, Trev. With this one, you just want Boise to keep winning. Boise's 7-2 right, or 6-2 right now. This game would put them at 7-2. Fresno State's a team with a winning record. Fresno's 5-3 right now. They lost to San Diego State last week. They also lost to Kansas to start the season. You look at the remainder of their schedule. They got Wyoming, Utah State, San Jose State. There's a good chance that that Fresno could finish 8-4, and it's going to be viewed as a quality win. But over the next couple weeks, Boise State's got an opportunity to make some noise. And this week, well, hopefully San Diego State can go out to Hawaii and handle business this weekend. But next week, so Boise has Fresno this week. And that if they win that game, it puts them at 7-2. Then they're off the next week. So again, potential for some chaos to happen. And then they have to go out to San Diego State on the 15th. If San Diego State beats Hawaii, and I believe that San Diego State's game against Hawaii, I think that's next weekend, or is it this weekend? Let me go look at their schedule real quick. Okay, it's Wyoming this weekend, then Hawaii next weekend. There's a chance San Diego State's 8-1, and they could potentially be ranked in the top 25 when that game gets played. Nobody's talking about the Mountain West. It's all focuses on Memphis and South Florida and Navy. Nobody's talking about the fact that San Diego State is 6-1 right now and has a blowout win over a Power 5 team with a winning record in Cal. So you've got a chance these next couple of weeks of Boise to earn some big wins. And even if they don't finish in the top 25, it's still going to look back and say that's a quality win. But if Boise can win their next two games over Fresno and San Diego State, there's a chance that they jump into the back of the top 25. And that would give, obviously, another resume-building win. And here's the other thing. One thing we've seen, somebody in the chat was referring to the committee's been inconsistent. And my response is, I don't think they've been inconsistent. I don't like what the committee does a lot of the time, but they're consistent with their things I don't like. They're consistently overrate Big Ten teams. They consistently overrate SEC teams. They consistently are very positive towards Notre Dame in their rankings. But one thing that they also consistently do, the bottom half of the top 25, really the bottom 10 of the top 25, a lot of times are used to put teams that they want to position to jump into the top 12, or the bottom kind of third of it, they tend to use as resume builders for the teams they want to push in the top half, right? We see that all the time. And if you're Notre Dame, there's three teams that have a shot to kind of be that for them. Boise, Navy, and Pitt. And so the more Boise wins, the better chance they jump into the top 25 by season's end. So we want the Broncos to keep winning. And this win over Fresno would be a quality Power 5, or a quality G5 win. Not a great one. That could be San Diego State in a couple weeks, but a quality one.
Second to last game that we're talking about here, Brian, it's on ESPN2. We're getting into the night slot, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Number 8, Georgia Tech on the road against the NC State Wolfpack. NC State, one of Notre Dame's last opponents, played them the week before USC. So how do you see this one playing out? What are we rooting for in this one?
I mean, this is a huge one, Trevor. I mean, this is a really big one because it serves two purposes. Number one, you're going to see Notre Dame jump ahead of Georgia Tech if Georgia Tech loses to NC State on the road. And like one thing that bothers me when I watch people do their rankings, and here's my playoff projections. They just look at record. I think it was my dad told me Greg McElroy had Louisville ahead of Notre Dame in his ranking, and it's just in his playoff prediction. It's just because of the record. That's not what the committee does. That's not a proper ranking. You don't just put all the undefeated teams at the top, then all the one-loss teams next. That's not how it works. Right now, Georgia Tech, who is undefeated, deserves to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame because they don't have any great wins, but they haven't lost to anybody. They keep winning, and you deserve credit for that. But the minute you catch a loss, your overall resume now takes a bit of a hit, in my opinion, right? They've got a 7-point win over Colorado, a 3-point win over Clemson, a win over Temple, a 1-point road win at Wake Forest. You won at home against Virginia Tech. You went on the road and beat a Duke team that's okay, 4-3 right now. And then you have a home win over Syracuse, a convincing home win over Syracuse. You're doing your job. All you can do is control what you can control. You can't control what's on your schedule. You go out and win every game. You deserve to be ranked high. You deserve to have a home playoff bye. The minute you lose to a team that's not very good, you're going to drop because your resume is not that great. And then if you lose to a team that Notre Dame stomped, there's a much better chance that Notre Dame jumps ahead of Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech could potentially leap back in front of them if they run the table and beat Georgia at the end of the year, and then maybe win the ACC title. But this will drop them below Notre Dame, in my opinion, in the first playoff poll. And then the double positive for that is it gives a Notre Dame opponent that they beat by 29 a big win. And the third positive is now all of a sudden the committee may look at Pitt a little bit differently when they look and see what Pitt did to NC State last week as well, which could jump Pitt back and could help boost Pitt's resume. So there's three big positives that come from NC State winning this football game. This is not a game to ignore. I'm not saying they're going to do it. We're not making predictions in this show necessarily, but I do think NC State's capable of it. It just depends on what version of NC State shows up. That looked like a defeated team a little bit against Pitt. And I'm a little concerned about that. So my hope is that going home helps NC State kind of refocus and kind of get their heads on straight. They had back-to-back really tough road games, and they've lost 4 out of 5. It's typical Dave Dorn. If he wants to salvage his tenure, or if some of the rumblings are true that he may be stepping down at the end of the year, it'd be nice for him to go out with some big wins, and this one would be good for him, but also be huge for Notre Dame.
Yeah, the biggest thing working in their favor is that they get Georgia Tech at home. It's been the most competitive NC State. They're just not a good team on the road. Lost by double digits on the road to Duke. They lost by double digits on the road to Notre Dame, double digits on the road to Pitt. But then you look at what they've done at home. Obviously, they beat East Carolina at home. They beat Virginia at home. Their only win on the road was against Wake Forest by 10. And then obviously they beat Campbell at home. So I'm with you. Depends on what version of NC State that we're going to see on Saturday. I'm definitely not banking on it. I don't think that they win this game. I know we're not giving predictions, but
right. If I was predicting this game, I'd predict Georgia Tech to win. I just think that Georgia Tech hasn't been as good as people think, and NC State's still a dangerous football team with that offense. I wouldn't be shocked if they win. I wouldn't bet on it, but I wouldn't be shocked if it happens. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Last game, Brian, in this slot that we're talking about, night game on NBC, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Number 23 USC on the road against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Big one for Notre Dame's resume as well.
I mean, look, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're not going to be happy with me saying this. You're going to actually probably pretty pissed at me right now. But honestly, for the next 5 weeks, every week, fight on. I mean, you need USC to keep winning out because they're going to do two things. Number one is it's going to boost your own resume. And also, number two, if USC wins out, Oregon will drop below you because they've got Oregon coming up later in the year. But you need quality wins. At the end of the year, your resume cannot be built only by 2 good losses. You have to have some wins that you look at and say those are good wins. Now, You don't necessarily need a ranked team to do that. If there's a bunch of teams that are in contention, a bunch of top 40 wins, then sure, that helps as long as those wins are dominant. But the fact is the higher ranked USC can get, the better it is for Notre Dame. And it gives Notre Dame a really good win to build around. Right now, what's your best win this season? It's either Boise or USC. That's it. So you need one of them, if not both of them, to keep winning and climbing up in the rankings. Those are the two opponents that they've already beaten that have the best chance to finish ranked. And so you're going to need them to win. And I know some of you can say, like P-Dub says, I just can't cheer for them. That's fine, but just understand by cheering against them, you're also cheering for something that's going to hurt Notre Dame's resume. Just want to make sure we understand that. So is your love for Notre Dame greater than your hate for USC? That's what you have to ask yourself. Now, I'm not saying you're out there like clapping, like, let's go Trojans, fight on, baby. Like, I'm not saying you need to do that, but you need to root for them to win this game. That's the way I look at it.
Unfortunately, that is the truth that we're in, and I'm with you. And look, at the end, I don't like USC. I don't. But Notre Dame already handled business against USC, so if them winning is just going to continue to make Notre Dame look better, I'm down. It's not like Notre Dame lost to USC in a close game, and that was their second loss. So we got to keep rooting for USC, a team that beat Notre Dame in what could have been their last rivalry game in the regular season. Notre Dame handled business against them, beat them by 10, and arguably should have beat them by significantly more than 10 points. I'm okay rooting for USC if it means that it's going to continue to bolster their resume. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Same.
I like this. I-51 K-turn. BD, I get it, but I don't have to like it. Totally fair. You don't have to like it. I'm not saying you're like USC becomes your second favorite team in college football, but you better absolutely be wanting them to win every single week the rest of the way. And since this is a rooting guide, you need to root for them to happen. The good news is I don't know many Notre fans that like Nebraska. So at least it's like, you get that fan base gets to catch an L. But it's good for Notre Dame if USC keeps winning. And Trev, your point is great. You already beat them, so they can't say anything to you.
Mm-hmm. It's like folding the laundry. Like, it has to happen, but you don't want to do it, but you feel better when it's done. It's kind of like that.
Well, and you have to do it once you get married. When I was not married, everything stayed in baskets until I needed it. But now my wife doesn't let me get away with that anymore. So, yeah.
Oh, man. Well, folks, that's going to do it for part 2 of today's show. Don't go anywhere. We're getting ready to preview
No, it's not. We have a lot of other games we need to quickly roll through, Trev, on the national side of the prediction show. Yeah, keep scrolling down. There's the Indy opponent section, and then there's the national section. That's below it. That we're going to be doing who cheering guide for Vandy, Texas, Louisville, Virginia Tech, all those games. I just sent you. So you have those
you just
there?
sent it?
No, well, I sent it earlier, but I just moved the Louisville and Virginia games down. So if you look in the group of games that I sent you earlier,
I got
the rooting guide, there's the one that says Indy opponents, and there's the one that says national. We're going to work through the national games next.
All righty. Well, those were Notre Dame's opponents. Now we're gearing up for the national.
I told you we had a lot of games to go over today.
You did. It wasn't on the My Notes thing, so I thought that it was
Yeah, we'll go a little bit more rapid fire on this one than we did the last one, but it is on the thing I sent you earlier. It's just under the Notre Dame opponents one, but this one's a little bit more rapid fire. We don't have to explain it as much because it's not about Notre Dame's resume and all this kind of stuff. So we'll be able to work through this one a little bit quicker than the one that we just got through. And we'll start noon, ABC, number 9 Vanderbilt at number 20 Texas. And Trev, this one's easy. You want Texas to win out or win this one. I'm not someone who believes that Texas jumps Notre Dame if they win out. I don't. But I do know this: if Texas beats Vandy, Notre Dame will be ranked ahead of Vandy, and that's good for Notre Dame. So this one's an easy one. Hook them. There we go.
Yeah. Had to get that out of my system.
Yep.
Sorry. Next game.
It's all good. I get it, dude. Like, I totally get it. But that's what's so fascinating about this new playoff format, Trev, is because there's so many more games you're like, but I hate that team. I know, but them winning helps Notre Dame. But I hate that team. Like, I get it, but it helps Notre Dame. I don't care. I hate that team. but that's what we kind of got to do nowadays. And so and it sucks too, because like Vandy's such a great story, and you want to root for Vandy, but I don't like Vandy more than I like Notre Dame. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, you want Texas to win, because that's just one more spot up that the Irish move when Tuesday comes.
Agreed. Next game, 3 p.m. kickoff on the CW, number 16 Louisville at Virginia Tech here. Big Hokies fans, are we?
Yeah, I don't think Louisville is going to finish ahead of Notre Dame, but it's part that this and the Virginia game later are part of sort of that nightmare scenario where if everything goes wrong, it includes Georgia Tech winning out till they get to the ACC title game, Miami wins out, Virginia wins out, Louisville wins out, because none of those teams play each other. And so that could be potentially a nightmare scenario. I still don't think Louisville and Virginia jump ahead of Notre Dame, but it's at least possible. And so I just think it's just getting L's for those teams as early as possible. Just then we don't have to worry about them anymore. And just check them off the list. So you're going to be wanting the Hokies to get this one done.
Yeah,
Hokies, who the scuttlebutt is that maybe James Franklin might be their next head coach. I just remember y'all heard us talking about that a couple weeks ago, that would be a great move for Virginia Tech. But the other thing too, Trev, to your point, is Virginia Tech has looked like a little bit of a different football team since they fired their coach. They haven't been perfect since they fired their coach, but they've been a lot more competitive, and they're coming off a really good win this past weekend against Cal. So maybe that helps turn their season around a little bit, and they can finish strong. But, yeah, you want the Hokies to pull this one off.
This is the part of the season that's always interesting to watch Jeff Brom, too. It almost feels like in a lot of his seasons, it's like, all right, got the big win, the big upset, check that off the box, and now the rest of the season we'll just kind of see what happens. And that's what happened with him at Purdue. That's what happened with him in 23 and 24 at Louisville. So,
yes,
I guess we'll just find out.
I still can't get over that they beat Notre Dame. They didn't just beat Notre Dame. They whooped Notre Dame in 2023. And then the next week got dominated by a Pitt team that finished 3-9. Like, I just, that team also that year also lost to Kentucky. It just, that was just a weird.
I mean, even last week's game against Boston College, at one point it was 31-24. It was 2nd and 20. Boston College was a stop away from making that really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
We just got done talking about how Boston College might get boat raced here in about 48 hours. Yep. So, that's Louisville, man. That's going to be a really interesting one. I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. 3:30 p.m. on ABC, Brian. Rivalry game. Number 5, Georgia on the road not in the swamp, right? This is neutral site, isn't it?
This will be in Jacksonville. Yep.
Okay, right on.
Yep.
Play in Florida. Rivalry game. This is an interesting one, and I know that we're going to take a deep dive into this one here in about 15, but this is going to be an interesting game.
And what do they call this? The world's largest cocktail party, right? Outdoor cocktail party is what they call this one.
Fun rivalry.
I just think Florida beating Georgia helps Notre Dame. Florida's not going to get in. The more 2-loss teams in the SEC, the better. A, it potentially knocks teams below Notre Dame. B, it diminishes some of the win quality of some other teams around Notre Dame. So this isn't a huge one. This is at the bottom of my most impacted Notre Dame, because I could see Georgia staying ahead of Notre Dame if they lose this game. But it does maybe help Notre Dame if Georgia loses another one. But, just so I kind of want the Gators to get this one done. And I think overall it helps Notre Dame's chances of moving up.
Some Big 12 action up next, Brian, on Fox. 3:30 p.m. kickoff. Number 13, Texas Tech on the road at Kansas State. Big Wildcats fans tomorrow.
Yes.
Or this weekend.
Well, it's funny. You and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, Trev. We said K-State's out of playoff contention. But the question now is, can they ruin the season for everybody else? Well, technically, K-State's not eliminated from the Big 12. They're now 4-4, I believe, but they only have 2 losses in their conference, because they lost to Army, and then they had another loss to, who else beat them out of conference? It was Army and Iowa State. No, that's in their conference. Who's their other conference? Arizona? No, so I thought ESPN said that they had. Did one of their conference losses?
I don't think Iowa State counted as a conference loss.
So it was kind of like the NC State-Virginia game? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Because, it says on ESPN that they've only lost 2 games in conference, but I remember us talking about that. I remember you mentioning that when we were previewing that game in week 0. Now that you say that, but K-State's, they've been kind of wrecking it. They wrecked TCU a little bit a couple weeks ago. They just dominated Kansas last week. They've had three. Yeah, we'll get into the breakdown of that, but I just think the danger here is two Big 12 teams are ahead of Notre Dame, and that's Texas Tech and BYU. I think that's unlikely, but it's possible.
Yeah.
And so I just, because like the danger is, so let's say next week Texas Tech wins this game, and then next week Texas Tech beats BYU. And then all of a sudden Texas Tech leaps Notre Dame and BYU's right behind Notre Dame. But then let's say BYU beats Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game in a rematch. I don't know that they're going to drop Texas Tech below Notre Dame based on the precedent they set last year. Does that then leap BYU? Now there's two Big 12s. I don't think it knocks Notre Dame out of the playoff, but I think it hurts their chances to host. I think there's a chance that all Big 12 teams are below Notre Dame if there's the chaos we think it's going to happen. And K-State beating Texas Tech is the perfect example of that, because now there's only a chance for one Big 12 team to finish ranked ahead of Notre Dame. That's BYU. And then BYU's got to go play Texas Tech next week. So we mentioned the other day, you want K-State to win this one, and you want Texas Tech to win against BYU next week.
Next game at 3:45 p.m. on ESPN2, number 15, Virginia on the road against Cal. And assuming here we are Bears fans this weekend to kind of keep Virginia Tech from nipping on the heels of Notre Dame.
Yeah, the Virginia is a team that right now, Trev, I'd just be shocked if they're ranked ahead of Notre Dame. I think that they're a team that you look at their resume, it's not an impressive resume in a lot of different ways. No, yes, they're 6-1, and that's great. And right now, Tony Elliott's maybe at the top of my leaderboard for Coach of the Year. I mean, he's done a great job there. But they've beaten Coastal Carolina, William and Mary, Stanford, Florida State, Washington State, and North Carolina. However, their road win over Louisville looks better and better every time Louisville wins, which is another reason you want Virginia Tech to win this game. And so they're playing at Cal this week. Cal's an up-and-down football team, but Cal at home has usually been a pretty good team this year, with the exception of the game against Duke. You want Cal to win this game and completely knock UVA out of playoff contention, short of them winning the ACC, which they'd still have a chance to do even if they lose to Cal. But it gets them out of the conversation for ever being ahead of Notre Dame, which is what you want. So that's why I'm rooting for the old Golden Bears this weekend, and Justin Wilcox, who's, by the way, doing a phenomenal job at Cal, by the way. He's a very underrated coach.
Agreed. Let's jump into the night slot, 7 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. South Carolina on the road against number 7 Ole Miss. Gamecocks are coming off of a game where they had an opportunity to upset Bama. If it weren't for that crazy, we tried to let Jeremy Bernard score on purpose play call, amongst other things. But now they get Ole Miss on the road. Should be another fun one.
Yeah, I think this is one where if Ole Miss loses this game and wins the rest of their games, they're probably still in the playoff. But there's a really good chance that Notre Dame jumps ahead of them if they lose at home to South Carolina. It's unlikely, but it's just a game to keep an eye on for Ole Miss, is catching that second L, dropping them behind Notre Dame. Because part of this is just Notre Dame getting as highly ranked as possible. This isn't a will Notre Dame make the playoff or not game, but it could impact Notre Dame's seeding. So you're going to want the Gamecocks to win this one.
What about number 18 Oklahoma on the road against number 14 Tennessee? 7:30 p.m. kickoff on ABC. Are we Sooners fans this weekend? How do you see this one?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am, because when I look at Tennessee, I don't think Tennessee can jump Notre Dame, but there's at least an outside chance at it. Tennessee right now is 6-2. They're ranked behind Notre Dame in the AP poll, but not by a ton. I'm very curious how the committee is going to view Tennessee. They've got the loss to Alabama. They've got two good losses at home to Alabama home to Georgia at Alabama. Their wins are over Syracuse, East Tennessee State, UAB, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Kentucky. They have way less impressive wins than Notre Dame does, and they have common opponents that you'll be able to evaluate them by. Notre Dame hasn't played one of those common opponents in Syracuse, but they have played Arkansas, and Tennessee beat them by 3, and Notre Dame beat them by 43. But if they beat Oklahoma, they beat Florida on the road, and then they beat Vanderbilt in the last game of the year at home, that could be enough to maybe have a 10-2 Tennessee jump ahead of Notre Dame. So you're going to want Tennessee to catch a third loss, whether it's this week to Oklahoma, in 3 weeks at Florida, or in the last game of the regular season at Vandy. You want them to catch one more loss to make sure that they don't jump ahead of Notre Dame. So yeah, you're going to be rooting for the Sooners this weekend. I'm not predicting it. I think Oklahoma's in trouble right now, but if you're asking who you're rooting for, it's definitely the Sooners.
Last one, little kickoff after dark, 10:15 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. Number 17 Cincinnati on the road against the number 24 Utah Utes. A little Big 12 action here, Brian.
Yeah, again, I think it's highly, highly unlikely that Cincinnati can jump Notre Dame, but getting road wins on the road against ranked teams can help them jump up quite a bit. So you just want it to be where all the Big 12 teams are behind Notre Dame. And then let them jockey for at-large bids at the bottom. It doesn't matter. Notre Dame's above them all, and they keep winning. So this is one where if Utah wins at home, now there's literally only 2 Big 12 teams that could be in contention of being ranked ahead of Notre Dame, and they play each other next week. So, yeah, you want the Utes to win this one. Again, highly unlikely that Cincinnati could pass Notre Dame, but you just never know, Trev. I mean, their only loss is a neutral site game to Nebraska right now. They've beaten Bowling Green, Northwestern State, Kansas, a solid Iowa State team, UCF, Oklahoma State, Baylor. They don't have a lot of good wins on their resume, but if they go on the road and beat Utah, and then in 3 weeks after that, beat BYU, and then a week after that, beat TCU on the road, now it's what, an 11-1 in Cincinnati against an 11-1 BYU? You know what I mean? And now there's also 11-1 Texas Tech or something. I mean, 10. There's just all these different scenarios. So you want more chaos in the Big 12. Hasn't been enough chaos yet in the Big 12. This one would help with that a little bit. Now it's just Texas Tech and BYU are all that you're worried about.
I agree with you that it's unlikely, but we've seen a lot of unlikely things happen so far this football season. So it's time to start making more of those unlikely things happen.
Yeah, I mean,
of them happen.
There was a couple games that we talked about last week. Like, it's highly unlikely that this is going to happen, but I mean, that kind of happened a decent amount last week. What was the one game, Trev? There was one game in particular that I know we were talking about that was not in the highly unlikely that this team can beat that team, but hey, you at least you root for it to happen. And then, it was North Carolina, Virginia, I think is what it was. Like, it's unlikely that North Carolina is going to win this game. That game went to overtime. You know what I mean? So just further evidence that Virginia's just not that good. But that's what it comes down to. It's unlikely, and so that's why it's unlikely that Mississippi State beats Texas. And for a while there, it looked like they were going to. So this is another one of those games. It's unlikely, but you want it to happen.
Agreed. Well, folks, that's going to do it for part 2 of today's
By the way,
show.
we haven't forgotten Houston. The problem is Houston's resume is not going to be anywhere close to being good enough because they just don't have enough of the good teams on their schedule. They have West Virginia, UCF, TCU, and Baylor. They don't play BYU. That's going to hurt them. They don't play Iowa State. They don't play Kansas State. They don't play Cincinnati. So Houston just won't have enough good wins to be ahead of Notre Dame. Houston could be in the playoff hunt, but they don't have enough good wins to be ahead of Notre Dame. That's why we're not talking about Houston. So we didn't forget about them. It's just right now, look at their schedule resumes. Texas Tech, Cincinnati, BYU are the ones that have a chance to potentially jump ahead of Notre Dame.
Folks, that's going to do it for part 2 of today's show, but don't go anywhere. We're getting ready to take a deep dive into the preview of some of the bigger games going on around college football this weekend. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the CFP Nation channel. Vince and I are going live at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight for this week's edition of the Spread Option, so you're not going to want to miss that either. Whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. And as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com.